So let's go back to my first experience at camp. This was back in 2001. I was a new camper there. I was 13 years old. And after lunch every day, we played sports. Now, I love playing sports, but that day we were playing basketball. And for some reason, I never really liked playing basketball. Baseball, soccer, football, great. Basketball, I didn't care for. So instead of playing basketball, I went up to the camp library. This camp, by the way, was in a big city. It wasn't one of these log cabin, woodsy camps in the middle of nowhere. So they were on a high school campus. They had a library with computers, with internet. And instead of playing basketball, I decided to go on the internet and play these Adobe Flash games because that was what they had back in 2001. Again, this is before the days of cell phones and certainly smartphones. So I'm playing these internet Flash games. I'm in the library for about an hour when all of a sudden my counselor walks in, and immediately I get worried. I think he's for sure here to lecture me, to tell me, why are you here? You should be playing sports. You didn't tell anyone. We didn't know where you were. Right? That's what I'm expecting. But what he actually said is that really this is what changed my life. When he looks at me and he says, Walter would like to have a word with you. That's what he said. Now, the fact that I even knew who Walter was after being in camp for a week, no one ever told me his name. It's not like someone introduced me to him, right? But somehow I knew who he was. And I was just so confused because, number one, he wasn't telling me off for ditching sports. And number two, why in the world would the camp cook have any interest in speaking with me, let alone even know who I am? Right? You think it's weird that I knew who he was. Like, there's 200 campers, and it's not like we introduce ourselves to the guy who scrubs the trays and ladles the soup. Like, just very weird. Anyway, so he says, Walter would like to have a word with you. I don't ask why. I just, okay, sure. I felt a bit relieved that I wasn't being yelled at for missing sports. I go downstairs. There's 3 flights downstairs. I'm in the cafeteria. I don't see anyone or anything. Everyone is obviously at sports. I go to the kitchen and I see Walter standing behind the counter, just kind of staring off into the distance. And he, without even acknowledging my presence, he just kind of walks around the kitchen counter like we're about to have a duel. Right? Walks out of the saloon doors, struts into the dining room, and with his chin, he just kind of points in the direction of a tray sitting on a table, right? All the tables are clean, and there's one tray sitting on a table. And I look at him and I go, yeah, like what do you want? And he tells me to bring the tray back and starts lecturing me about dining room protocol and how the rule is that after every meal, every camper must bring back their tray. They had designated racks for bringing your tray back. Makes sense, that's not an unreasonable rule. But what doesn't make sense is, number one, no one told me this rule. Right? I was new to camp, and it's not like we had a sit down on the first day of camp where the rules were explained. So that's number one, is how do you expect me to even know your stupid rule? Number two, how did you even know it was my tray? It didn't have my name on it. There were about 50 tables in the dining room and hundreds of kids at this camp. Like, how in the world did you know this was my tray, right? When all the kids get up and leave, it's pandemonium, it's chaos. All the kids just get up and leave the dining room. So how did you find that out? And number three, even if you knew it's my tray, you're telling me that you spent an hour tracking me down during sports, right? It would have taken you literally 10 seconds. You could have gone up yourself, taken the tray, and put it back. It would have taken you 10 seconds. Instead, you probably walked all over the campus. And this was a big campus. You walked to the baseball field. You walked to the gym where they were playing basketball. There was another baseball field called Laramie, which was about a 10-minute walk from the school. There was a football field. There was a soccer field. There was, again, this is a huge high school campus in the middle of a big city. How long was he looking for me, right? Until finally he found my counselor, and then my counselor had to look for me. And again, I wasn't at sports. I wasn't so easy to find. It took him over an hour, at least, to track me down over something which would have taken him 10 seconds to do. So after lecturing me about all this, and I apologize and kind of brush it off. Okay, not a big deal. I got it. Let's move on with our lives. But no, that wasn't enough. He then looks at me, and with this fake aura, this fake, pompous, facade of authority, he says, campers who don't follow the rules get sent home. Now, the camp was in Skokie in Chicago, and I lived in Boston. So here, the guy who scrubs the trays and wipes down the tables is telling me that I'm going to get sent home because I forgot to bring back my tray after lunch. Like, really? You're going to pay for my flight to leave camp because of a tray? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. How did he know where I was? How did he know it was me? Why did he put so much energy into tracking me down? And why did he even use trays? Why did they use trays, right? You could have just as easily, anyway, you scrub the tables, right? You scrub the tables with a sponge and you wash the trays. It's just an extra thing to wash, right? If anything, you shouldn't require trays at all, or you could put down a plastic tablecloth and then at the end of the meal, just kind of wrap it all up, dump it in the trash, and have an extra 3 hours free. Instead, you decide after every meal that it's worth your while to scrub 300 trays.